I don't see it.
Doctored in ketchup.
We have to care about the agents.
Screaming at a drag show, so
Put it right on.
right. I'm like, okay,
The pizza boxes.
Right.
So we
It's kind of around, I think it's like northwest of Tampa, which is kind of weird because there's like not really much there other than like Dunedin and like some other place where like the Blue Jays do spring training. But New Tampa, for the most part, is like dead north, kind of like a Doral area of Tampa. But Matt, are we hot? We're live. All right. Welcome back to On the Mic. I am here with DJ De La Sala and a very special guest today. How are you?
Doing good.
Who's our special guest?
Who is our special? Well, I don't know his official title from Zillow.
We have Ryan Town here.
Well, I didn't want to introduce his. What is your actual title from Zillow? So right now you are our advisor, but I don't know, like in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, no, I just along for the ride, I think Tara said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, along for the ride. Okay, so yeah, we have totally flipped our brokerage upside down from where you would normally see other brokerages. We do this crazy learning kind of, I don't want to call it like an annex because like it's kind of like a full school without being a school. So DJ has tasked us, we're a completely different model, but DJ has tasked us to bring the classes that we have in person that people rave about, be able to broadcast them out. And this is your first experience that and seeing it in real time. Kind of walk us through your thought, like.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think the first thing that's evident, when you walked into the room is like the culture, like agent engagement, like everybody was not only here bright and early to taking this training, but they were focused. Some were taking notes, like feverishly.
Right.
And it was really good content, of course.
Right.
Brett really crushed it with what he was teaching on, but I think it was more about the culture and the energy. A lot of agents kind of phone it in sometimes, especially at 7:30 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's huge. So I use the analogy. So when Bruce Springsteen started touring, they had the live shows were insane, and the albums were always just like, eh. And we kind of had like, man, the classes are so good, and this room is getting so packed, but we can only fit so many people in this room. How do we bring the same experience? So he obviously tasked us to bring it. So now we can kind of like bring the knowledge that him and Lindsey have literally just copy and paste to these people trying to break into real estate. And even just if you're in the industry to just like gain this knowledge. I mean, we have people zooming in from all over the state just because these classes are such that. Do you kind of see that in any other markets? I don't know if you work in any other markets, kind of like, is this the first one of a kind experience you've seen?
Yeah, so I mean, I've worked with partners all across the country in all sorts of different markets. The production value was legit. I feel like if I was sitting in home and I had to like dial into this, you guys went out of your way to make that person feel like they were in the room.
Yeah, like 4K. We got the mic ball, which I like the mic ball. You can kind of throw it around. Pretty cool.
I've never seen a mic ball yet at a real estate in-office training yet. So.
Because it's interactive, and we knew that. We're like, how do we make them feel like they're sitting in the room, or even the people in the room, when they're asking a question, it's always just like, so I remember, like, how do we get them engaged? And like, we started with walking these microphones back to the room. Like, that's kind of lame. Yeah. And we saw those things like Catch Box or whatever. And I'm like, do we like need that? So we just like did our own thing and made the mic ball. We're just like, hey.
I was wondering whose idea it was to do the mic ball, but it's genius. Yeah. You definitely want to create. It creates a fun environment. Pass me the mic.
Until it hits somebody in the head.
Well, that's what we did. It's soft thumb, right? It's like a skills ball that you know. I think it's for working out. I don't even know, but like we just cut a hole in it, put a microphone in it. Not with a skills ball. It's like a foam ball. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll bring it up here in a second.
So, Ryan, you said you work all across the country. Like, what have you seen? What trends are you seeing right now in the real estate industry? Because you have like a 10,000-foot view of a lot of things, of, a lot of different brokerages, team, just in a whole, like, we talk about low inventory. Like, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, all through 2021, and especially in 2022, like inventory is the big conversation, right? Market. There's no homes. And I think having now lived with that and worked with these teams and these agents and kind of seeing how some are surviving, some are thriving, in the market, I think it comes down to mindset, teams that keep their head in the game and keep focused on, there's more work being done. There's more offers being written. But people are also having record-breaking years, right? The money's there. It's just who's going to win those homes. And it's the people that are kind of stay ready, so you don't have to get ready,
right?
So that's it. Mindset. How do we keep agents engaged? How do we address fatigue? We talked a little bit about that.
Right.
Fatigue's a big one. And how do we keep people?
Why do you think they get fatigued? Because it is so daunting and, emotional, or it's just everything really? I mean, it's physical, it's emotional.
Yeah, it was, and we kind of had an interesting conversation about that too. But it's the emotional impact of, right, your people's hearts are breaking when they don't win those offers, right? Like, we all talk about the fact that, like, the competitiveness from the like, hey, you want to buy a house, there's 30 other people that want to buy this house. What doesn't get talked about as much, but I think we all know is there, is that's 29 hearts that broke when that house gets bought. So if you're a buyer's agent, sorry, if you're working with those buyers that are putting those offers, the seller's happy, right? They're getting like $100,000 over asking price.
Right.
It's moving faster than homes have ever moved before. But the buyers, if you're a good buyer's agent, you're managing the emotional fallout of that. And I would imagine that that's got to be pretty hard to do.
Right. I mean, it's definitely a big concern. Would you say who you work with matters, or just knowing that you're going into these, seeing these homes that, like, hey, there's going to be 30 other people also wanting this home. What are you willing to do to beat that person? Do you think there needs to be a huge sacrifice, or you just need to align yourself with somebody who is going to kind of have your best interest and say, hey, this is what you'll need to do to win this home? Do you think you need to sacrifice, or do you not?
I mean, it's like anything, right? Like, the more that you understand what the pitfalls and the challenges are going to be, the better you can prepare anybody. Even a kid going to college, right, needs to understand, like, hey, this is not going to be easy. You gotta get through all the distractions and stay focused on your courses if you're going to get the grades and make it out of here, right? So setting up, the setup, right, the disclaimers on the front end, like, how do you prepare your buyers for the gauntlet that they're about to go through? And it's not just how many offers or how long it'll take or how many homes you'll bid on you won't get. It's also what's your financial situation look like, education around making sure that you're buttoning up and making your offers as solid as they can be.
Absolutely.
It's everything. Yeah. So I think mindset's one of those things, like one of the things that's key. The agents that are succeeding are positive, right? They're leaning into it. Right. But it's also it's also what can they do to prepare the buyer and educate them and be a hero. Some agents right now are asking people on the front end, well, what's your money look like? Oh, well, you're FHA? Yeah, good luck. Yeah. And that's the end of the conversation. Whereas with a little bit of work, you might be able to get that buyer into a different different
construction. There's just, you gotta give them options. Well, knowing their options.
For you, as we'll just call you a seasoned veteran agent, is it on you to prepare your client, hey, this might not be the home, or hey, what are you willing to part with that you can
sacrifice,
or just like, hey, is your school, like, is this really the location? Like, what is your number one thing as the agent that you're trying to relay to your client? Hey, what's the number one thing about this house? Like, if it's the location, okay, then this is what the things you're going to have to sacrifice. Or
there's no matter what, you're making a sacrifice. And that's any time. We all want to live on the ocean and have panoramic views and stare at the shrimp boats all day. We all know that's probably not a reality.
Right.
However, like, setting those expectations of, like, all right, and I've always been a big, you live in New York. I always say that people will always sacrifice size for location, because I talk about quality of life and people in Manhattan live in sometimes 800,000 square feet, figure out their closets.
That's being generous.
I mean, right? That's being generous. But I have a lot of friends. I love New York, and I know what some of their living, and if they can do it, raise families, do things, like, we can do it here, but, we obviously are a little bit, more spoiled. So I always say, like, always focus on, I try to focus on location, because location, because of schools, work, what you like to do, quality of life is always going to supersede probably, like, that office that you wanted,
so that's
or
the
that
number
pool that you wanted.
And that's the number one thing you would guide your clients to say, I would not, like, location should be your number one North Star when looking for a home. It should be, is this the area, whatever the reason it is this the area you want? Not like, wow, this house is super cute, there's nothing around it for 300 like.
Right, because that's probably changing. Yes, you probably do want a separate bedroom for Susie and Sally to grow up in. Correct. However, kids have always shared bedrooms, and that's always been a thing. And what I kind of see, and I'd love your input, but I think where the world, where we might be going is adults again having roommates. And so I think the dual master bedroom type living situation because of the rent cost and the affordability factor of rates going up and the prices going up, that we're going to see a ton of, roommate situations becoming the norm again. So
Sure.
I don't know,
especially in young adults, right?
Young
Like people
adults and
young
it's like,
30s,
hey.
mid 30s that either are dating, don't have, whatever the situation is, maybe a single parent.
maybe your parents and
Right, exactly. Just like, hey, we just have
but
so-and-so
hey, I
live
don't
with
want
us.
to commute 45 minutes to work, so I think that's
Yeah.
a trend we'll see in the future.
Do you guys see that? Like, is there anything on Zillow that will flag something as something like a dual primary or anything where you guys can almost pull data? We're like, wow, this house sold for whatever over the estimate, whatever the situation is, because, and then look into why? Or you guys just kind of rolling through hey, this area is really hot. How do you guys kind of look at stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think the data on Zillow Zillow, right? It's a million points of data and the word pillow,
Right.
right?
Yeah, right.
So the data's come a long way and continues to. That's our backbone as a company. I don't know that
Specifically, I think that'd be hard to
that's-
depend.
yeah.
That's what- yeah,
I think
that's
it's
what-
always going to be. I mean, I don't know about.
Well, only I say that-
probably area, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you guys just launched your hottest market trends, and Jacksonville was, I think, number one.
Number two, I think, yeah.
Tampa,
and-
Orlando.
yeah. But I only say that because everyone think the number one thing we face is my home is unlike any other. It's like, you're so wrong, it's insane. Right? But that's what I'm saying is they don't even collect. And they might, but they just don't even come into play, is my point of me asking that, is that everyone says, my home is the best because of this. Mm-hmm. That's great. You're planning to leave it. We have to paint a picture for somebody completely different.
Yeah.
What are those things that they're interested in? It's location, it's the school, it's whatever it is. And that's what I'm trying to get people to kind of read into and understand, that you love this home for reason A, someone else is going to like it for reason G, right? They're disconnected. They might share some of those things, but if someone like Zillow is just it's kind of negligible, that information, it's probably negligible, right? You probably shouldn't be overly concerned with it.
So if
to
it was important, it would be there, right? Yeah.
That was my point, right?
So what is your role? What do you coin yourself as? Where do you see yourself as the Zillow advisor? Why do you love what you do? Where do you see the current situation and future situation? Because you're knee deep in the industry.
Yeah. So as a growth advisor, I work exclusively with our Flex partnerships now here in the Florida region.
Exclusively Florida?
Right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a South region, but right now all of my teams are in Florida. But I've, again, previous to this, worked with teams everywhere from Seattle all the way down to this side of the country. So as a growth advisor, we're focused on helping our partners not only scale on our Flex platform, but scale responsibly, right? So making sure that essentially there are positive, agent, customer buyer outcomes.
Because it's all about the consumer. You got to make sure. I mean, otherwise they're not going to come to the site anymore, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you went to Netflix and the movies aren't playing, you're going to eventually end up over on Prime Video, right? So we want to make sure.
No doubt. Yeah, and a lot of people will want to bite off more than they can chew, and you're here to say, hey, why don't we start here? Let's work our way towards here. Yeah,
well, and at the end of the day, though, to DJ's point, helping our customers unlock life's next chapter, that only happens if they get into a conversation with one of our wonderful premier agent partners.
Definitely.
And that agent essentially then takes that customer the rest of the the final mile. So there's a lot of ways to help do that, but it's a lot of education. I think the average agent out there today taking inbound calls, not just on our platform, but in general, is really focused on, okay, great. I hope this is a good one. Right now, their phone rings and they go like this, oh, what's it going to be today?
Right.
And what's interesting about the online market today, when you think about customers that are using their phone to get things done, when they call through and they get to Zillow and then Zillow says, okay, great, yeah, we're going to connect you. Well, now they're like, oh, great. They're going like this saying, oh, I hope I get a good one.
Right.
In the online world, the customer getting a good one is going to win out.
Right.
But, we're educating agents on how to think more like that, take into consideration the consumer journey and make sure they're delivering on that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty unique, especially from a service and a company like Zillow, to where they're trying to, obviously you want to handle the customer experience. It's the number one because it's your name, it's your brand, but
we're nothing without customer. Yeah, all of us.
But at the same time, they're also caring about the agent because, right, they're like, hey, like, this is how you can better yourself. This is why you need to do X, Y, and Z. It's not just like, okay, this person was terrible, right? It's like, hey, this is what you can do better, right? Let's review this. Why aren't you doing these things, right? We talk about the why all the time. I think people just say there's a very big difference as to why you do things like personal growth, or I have kids, or I have this, not to like, well, why would I say that to somebody else? Like, those are not two different whys. I'm teaching you how to be better. The why we're talking about is why you get up in the morning, not why you are doing certain things to be better at something. And I think people get those misconstrued. And I think a company like Zillow carrying kind of that on their back is kind of big. Like, I think that's huge. That's like a huge benchmark.
Yeah.
Very passionate about it within the walls of Zillow, making sure that we deliver on that customer experience. Moving's hard, right? Like, the idea is like,
I just did it. It's the worst.
The whole thing, every aspect, and you're in the business. You would be considered like probably one of the most thought leader expert in the space, right? And it was hard for you. So imagine like what, the rest of us, average,
for sure.
People out here
Definitely.
trying to move. It's hard, the whole thing. And then when you put that into a market like today where, things are as competitive as they are and that heartbreak, whereas when it used to be maybe like missed out on 2 of them, you survive that. You miss out on 10 of them, you tap out. So, but you mentioned why, and I was kind of thinking about this earlier, and I think that's important. So, when it comes to like having a customer step into a new customer, maybe a first-time home buyer even, stepping into such a competitive market today, agents can be a little quick to qualify that buyer and kind of get to the point of like you don't have a shot, Right. Whereas, that buyer, if you got to the why of like why they're trying to move and why it is that they find the things that they find important, the how becomes easy when the why is great enough. And if you can really like tap into the emotional driver of what the buyer's trying to accomplish, you'd be shocked to see like what considerations or what, what that buyer might be willing to do to
right, concessions, et cetera. Yeah, that's a great thing. Is the how becomes very plausible, very easy once you're like, okay, this is why. Single mother moving here needs to get in this school system. 5-minute drive to work, whatever it is. We need to make this happen. This is what we're going to do to get you this house, Mrs. Buyer.
But I think a lot of times that, like you said, we're crossing our fingers and we hope to get a good one. That agents take a step back and they're focused on, all right, let me make sure they're let me make sure. And it's like, all right, whoa, slow down. Like, why don't you get to know this person first? Let's understand what their why is and what their destination is going to look like. Yeah. And, I think what we train on, what we do a really good job at is finding that out. And and I think always been our North Star, kind of aligned with you guys, and, being aligned with you guys for a long time has always been really beneficial to know that, hey, this is the why. The consumer is the why. And if we all wake up every day, we show up to this office, we understand that that's our why, then it doesn't become easy, it becomes easier. Now we just got to really get really good at it. And how do we win? And, strategies will help us get better through that.
Zillow's not living in a bubble either. Like, we get the agent, the life of the agent is not like an easy one, especially right now. Like, to the agent's credit, right? They're dealing with more buyers in their funnel than they ever have had because there's no place for a lot of them to end up, right? When you have 29 people losing out, they're still there.
29 disappointments, 29 people who, right, that makes sense.
But they need to keep looking, right? So and a bunch of them will just attrition because of the fact that they'll tap out. If you get to so many and you're just not competitive, in a competitive space, you just won't continue searching right now. But agents have such large pipelines right now, and a lot of those are sort of in the like lukewarm to cooling stages, right? But they're still having to if they're nurturing those, it's still a lot of cognitive load. It's that's where this fatigue comes from.
You're right.
So being able to manage that, I think, is really important.
Like, I'm a buyer, right? Like, I'm looking for an investment. Lindsey and I are looking for another investment property right now, and last week one came up, we made an offer, like full price, got the did everything I could. Obviously, it was like 4 minutes on the offer and didn't even get a counter back, accepted another offer. Then I was like, all right, can I get a backup on this? Yeah, they waived all of the contingencies and everything. And now I'm one of those people. I just talked about moving. I'm like, every day I'm just like, all right, what's going to come up today? Nothing. And it's like, it's kind of it's exhausting,
right?
And I know it will come up, but I know, like, all right, how are we going to, put myself into the shoes of somebody that really needs to move? Like we're in spring, it's first day of March, we have spring coming up. Like there's a lot of families right now, like legit, like I need to be in a school district by, within the next 90 days
no doubt.
to get my kid in. And what am I going to do? So there's a lot of fear and a lot of, anxiety based around that. So it's hard right now. And it's
yeah. And I think it's important that you kind of outline the fact that you'd be purchasing in an investment realm where I guess yours are mixed where people are about looking for the home to stay in, et cetera. And you kind of have that, like the attrition rate of, people coming in are like, oh man, I'm lost on 7 homes now. Like, I'll just figure it out. Like, let me wait another month, 2 months, whatever. Some people are right. They're like, I need to be in a home by a certain time. And to find the proper care and knowledge and hand-holding, I think is a huge issue. And again, I just go back to Zillow being able to also care about that too is a huge thing because, Zillow's Zillow. Like, they're as big as they can be.
So what does Zillow see as far as home prices in the future? Do you guys have any, input on that?
So actually, there is some very specific data on pricing that I don't have top of mind here to share, but I can say that while the inventory is definitely going to be different in 2022 than it was in 2021, predictions are that this is still going to be just shy of another record-breaking year.
That's awesome.
So
that's wild.
Prices will continue to increase. How much? I don't have that number ready.
Right.
But there is a prediction. I just got to go.
Yeah, I feel like I read somewhere, and I don't quote me on it, but it was something where Zillow had come out to say, hey, we were looking at our market data, and we were a little bit off where we thought it was going to go. It's going to be another record-breaking year with inventory, right? Like, they were like trending, hey, it looked like it was trending this way, but it turns out
I
it's
know, like
trending.
NARs, like like NAR and all these different publications are trying to use like and it's all like it was like 3, 5, 7. Everyone's like trending to this level. It's
right.
like, but obviously nobody has a crystal ball. But
yeah, and we would probably have one of the best looks at it just because of how much data we have. But the other thing too that's coming to mind as we're talking about this that I want to remember to say is like we're also. We're in unprecedented times.
Right.
And that's a little saying that's been used too much, but it's true. Like we're guessing. We're using historical data against like something that hasn't necessarily happened historically.
But again, back to the crystal ball. Like no one actually has a crystal ball. But so I told you I was going to bring this up, and you were like, "Oh, I'm nervous." No, it's a good thing. It's funny, but we go back to Zillow and the data points that they have on customers, consumer, et cetera.
Yeah.
There was a survey. Somebody actually just posted a video in our work chat, and there was a survey on like some live television show, and it was like 49% of people said that they would rather do this than have sex. It was like, do something, browse homes on Zillow, and like do something else. And the answer was browse homes on Zillow.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you that you guys investing and just becoming and building a partnership with Zillow having the consumer be their North Star, and everybody has their ducks in a row and the compass pointing the right direction, that literally people would rather fantasy look at homes on Zillow.
Or not fantasy. You got to think like
not fantasy.
Real estate's badass.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, you're like, I'm a buyer. Like I'm looking constantly, right?
And I'm not a huge investor in stocks. Like I do, but it's cool to see like when I can drive by my duplex and be like, that's awesome. I can go out there, I can piddle. Like you can't do that with a stock. I mean, yeah, sure, you can trade them, you can go up or down, but you can tangibly go see your investment property. You can go into your home. It's just something that's always going to be this grand thing.
Right.
And prices will go up, prices will go down, but no matter what, it's always going to be something that you look at and probably always be proud of. Mm-hmm. Again, as long as you're not stretching yourself to means that you won't be able to afford it.
Yeah.
God forbid something does happen.
Right.
I always think that everyone's always going to have this great enamor with real estate because of that. So
it's like livable art.
Yes.
Definitely. Like you can buy art, you can put it on your walls, and you can be like, oh, I invested a lot in this piece. It's there.
Right.
So do you own any NFTs?
Yeah.
I knew this was going to come around to crypto and NFTs.
Okay. Hit it.
Wasn't the first house sold as an NFT down here in Florida?
Tampa, yeah.
Yeah, in Tampa.
Should ask Joe about that.
Okay.
Well, NFTs are very interesting. I think the smart contract Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to claim to be an NFT specialist, and definitely not on behalf of Zillow.
Right. Well,
We'll cut that out.
yeah, we'll cut that out. But it's ironic because people are now buying and selling in the metaverse, in the virtual space.
Real estate.
Yeah, real estate.
Yeah, like I saw a mansion go for like $650,000 like last week.
Right.
Like,
And
somebody
it's like-
bought a mansion.
Like straight out, I'm not gonna lie. Even if I become an expert, I'm still want to drive by my house.
Yeah,
that I invested in.
Right, and I know we're super early in it. It's still like all these uncertainties happening, but I'm like, I don't yet see. I mean, I get it, but I'm like, I don't yet see how there's going to be a measurable situation where it's not we'll just make more, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's only so much earth, which is why real estate holds value, right? It appreciates. It's like digital, so I'm like, what's stopping you? Be like, oh, I'm making a new globe.
Yeah.
Now like this, I'm selling real estate there. Like that's the disconnect for me. I get like it's just a screenshot. I'm like, I get it, the ledger, the block,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards, whatever. But it's right. There's nothing tangible there that some people that's what some people want.
That's what some people want.
Right, like you could probably do what you do in stocks, but it's not the same feeling.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. It's not the
boring.
same feeling. It's
Yeah.
not
Like,
the tangible like.
You know,
driving
Noah,
past.
myself, we can drive by it, we can have it. So, all right, in closing, I'm going to ask you a question. It's
Yeah.
going to be completely off real estate. So, you live in Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
So, you
Whereabouts? Whereabouts in
know, I
Manhattan?
can't tell.
I'm saying, are you upper? Like, I'm just saying, like, what are some cool places
I'm
you do?
12 minutes out from the West Village.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so technically it's I'm on the other side of the Hudson.
Okay.
I'm one of those bridge and tunnel crews.
Oh,
So-
okay.
So,
I'm in the Jersey City area.
Love that. My brother lives in Hoboken. That's why I asked.
Oh, yeah.
I know the area well. Yeah.
I'm like where JC and Hoboken meet. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, big time.
so favorite thing about living there. So, what do you love?
The culinary arts there are fantastic. The restaurants are great.
I love restaurants. What's your favorite, like, I know it's hard to pinpoint one. What's your favorite cuisine that you're like, all right, once a week I do this because I live in New York City?
Okay, so I lived in Japan for a year when I was 15 years old,
Okay.
and I picked up a little bit of language. And then I actually was a sushi chef for 6 years when I was 13 through 19.
Whoa.
So yeah, I can see how the path to Zillow that checks
Yeah,
out. I can see that's how it started.
This is how
Zillow.
exactly. So during these years, anyway, so I probably go to sushi at least once a week.
All right.
There's some wonderful omakase in the city. Yeah.
So Noah and I, we do a father-son trip every year. We've done it since he was probably 6 years old, and it's always been like wherever we go, we've traveled around a lot of cool places, but it's always kind of really always been based around cuisine or surfing. But if we go surfing, we're always going to eat really good.
Yeah.
So we did this omakase thing, and I remember sitting there and we walked into this room, and there was nobody else in there. It was just the chef and one other. It was a server.
Yeah.
And he was from Japan. It was just like a really hard to get into, dope spot.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
And it was funny. We were talking to him a little bit. We were asking him about like, hey, he's been doing this for 15 years, and obviously not a very big space. And I was like, what gets you going? I'm like, do you ever get sick of this? He goes, no, I'm still trying to perfect this, and it wasn't perfecting the fish or anything. He said he's still trying. He said he doesn't feel like he's gotten the rice right yet. He's like, so he told me perfection doesn't exist.
Right.
Because he doesn't still, after 15, 20 years, however long he's been doing it,
Yeah.
that he's still trying to perfect cooking the rice. I was
Right.
like, wow, that's crazy to think about when you think about sushi. You think about it, but not really think about, like, that's his mindset on that. So.
Well, yeah, that's what Pablo Picasso is, one of those artists that he differs from Da Vinci in the sense that he never thinks the piece is done, ever. So, like, that's why, and Kanye West now, that's why he's, like, been calling himself Picasso, because he doesn't ever think
The album's finished.
it's finished.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And
I'm
that's
watching the documentary right now. So
documentary is wild. I don't know if you're a Kanye person.
Huge Kanye fan. Don't get me started on Kanye.
So you've watched the documentary on Netflix?
I've been traveling, so I didn't get the second episode.
I'm on the
Okay.
second episode right
Yeah.
now.
Okay, so whatever you do, watch the second episode. Whatever you have the next morning, make sure the gym is lined up first, because it'll make you want to run through a wall. I've never been a Kanye hater. I've just been like, okay, like Kanye, that jackass, whatever. I watched that documentary. I'm stoked for the third episode. I'm like, no one works harder than that dude. Nobody.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I mean, just the way he was around Jay-Z and all these other people, and they're naming all these people, and you're like, I don't even remember half these people, but I remember
Yeah.
Kanye, and he's like sitting there, he's like, hey, like, you want to listen to my track? Like, you should listen to my track. You got 5 minutes? Let me listen to my track. I'm like, just going to these sessions, just working his you know what off him. Like,
Yeah.
it just builds respect, and it's being shot from 1998 was like bananas. But yeah, watch that second episode, have the gym lined up 5 a.m. the next morning.
Could you imagine being his buddy, right? I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Connie?
Cootie.
Cootie.
Yeah. Could you imagine being that guy and like having sat on that footage for all these years?
Right.
And like, you know, like he left what he was doing to go and film Kanye for all those years.
He was a stand-up comedian. That's crazy. Like, took a huge risk.
A huge risk. But think about how long he had to wait for the Netflix payday. Right. Like
it's crazy.
It's very crazy. But I thought the first episode was great. You know, him walking around Rockefeller Records trying to get people to listen to his album.
He's like playing it for the HR rap.
Yeah,
and like, she's like, yeah, I'm like,
and I'm just sitting there like,
he's vibing too. He's like doing
Yeah.
the same thing. I'm like, and it's crazy because he's playing it then, and he's like, listen to this new song. We're like, man, I remember that classic.
Yeah.
Like,
So you guys are I'm gonna get off camera here for a sec, but you guys are gonna lose it.
so. Anyway, I'm not like a massive Kanye person. I've now been on like a huge Kanye kick. Yeah, baby.
So so this is the stem player.
Yeah.
that he just released.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so stem player, I don't know which camera you're going to cut to. So this is the stem player. Kanye decided, and I don't really know what the details were of the Apple streaming debacle, but it was supposed to be, the Donda Experience was supposed to be streamed on Apple, I think TV Plus, and I think once he was like, I don't want to stream it because I'm losing out on so much revenue, they were like, all right, well, we're also not going to stream the experience. So he like cut the check himself, released it on Stem Player. This came out a year or better ago, the physical device. But then once he announced that it was only going to be exclusive on there, sold like another 2.5 or 2.2 million.
Have you listened to it?
Yeah, so a lot of people were like, oh, you know, why'd you spend $200 on an album? And I don't think most people understand what this actually is. So it's a musical instrument. The idea is it's got these like 4 stems, or these 4 channels, and you can actually upload any song, anybody's song, like a Daft Punk song, like any song. Like
it's an MP3 player, right?
It's like an MP3 player, but it has AI built into it, where just in this device, where it'll split the song into the 4 stems: vocals, bass, instrumental, and like guitar. Like I can't remember what the 4th one is.
Acoustic, yeah, whatever.
So imagine that. Like there's no. You just upload a song and it just does it.
So can you split it off as you want it?
Yeah, and so then when you play a song, you can like turn down the vocals, and it could just be an instrumental. You could turn up the vocals, turn off the bass, turn off, and just have an instrumental a cappella.
That's cool.
And so imagine now, like the just, well, for playing around, you could just have fun with music with this thing.
Right.
Sure.
But if you're a producer and you want to now, so Kanye's music, his whole career, he's like the sample king. You know, he goes in, he finds like these cool little pieces of songs that sound familiar that you love, and then he makes a whole new piece of art out of it, right? So now what this tool does is it essentially allows you to do that. Isolating the little piece of that song that you want to make a whole nother track is really difficult to do if you're not like pretty skilled with the tool. You have some skills. Well, now you can just do it in 2 minutes, and you can now make a new piece of music with it. So
that's wild. Yeah, I was gonna say my head's like, that's nuts, because I just assumed, I like see it, and especially growing up at the age that we are, I'm like, think about when MP3 players first came out. There was like the Zune and like all these other ones that just all fell off. Apple won because
remember Napster.
But same thing, like they figured, Apple just figured out a better way to do it, and then Sean Parker, who invented Napster, is now invented Spotify. Right? Same dude. People don't know that, but same dude. They figured out a better way to do things, and everybody else lost. There was like Rio, all these other players. So I didn't understand. I'm like, why would you make that? Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Especially for someone like Kanye, came from Chicago, not like dirt poor, but not wealthy by any means.
Southside.
And built himself off of the knowledge of that. And you see all those photos, documentary, the first episode, he's got all these things around him trying to do just that.
Yeah, he's giving, play with the music. Yeah,
right. He's essentially, that's even cooler and even more heart into music, that he's giving the tools to people who might not be able to afford all that. So the next
Kanye can come out
straight up.
Yeah,
well, that's wild.
I think,
yeah, super cool tool. And then think about it. So for him, just like as a business. So now, you know, even if he only sells 100,000, 200,000 of these things this year, right? The revenue tied to that's pretty good. Probably like more than what most artists will make on an album. But then like releasing new music, like maybe you just pay a little fee, $10, and you get the next album.
Yeah.
But that's $10 full in his pocket instead of somebody else's.
Right,
So
it was
it's
the
very-
revenue. The revenue from like one day's sale was like 2.2 million. Would have been if it was like 500 million streams or something. It was like that's what the
crazy.
revenue cut would have been. But
Well, that's a cool thing to close with.
I think that's a super cool thing to close with,
Yeah.
especially since
Bet
it
you
does
didn't-
more. It's more than just an MP3 player. It's a musical instrument. I think
Yeah.
that to me completely changed the perspective of it's not a $200 album. It's a $200 instrument that you can do whatever really you can do with it.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, that's
it's
awesome.
infinite thing. So
Well, I just want to say thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thanks for having me.
visiting. It's been really awesome. And
yeah, I mean, we're on the mic. We do it every week. This week we just happen to have a kick-ass guest. So I appreciate
Yeah,
you coming on,
thank
giving us
you.
our time, and hopefully you have a good time in the Sunshine State.
yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
watch out
See
for
ya.
Good
alligators.
beer.
That's wild.
Do you guys know that there's one alligator for every or something?
No.
For every person in Florida.
I bet you didn't believe that I was going to pull it.
I did not.